Welcome, everyone. I am Bob Wurzelbacher, the director of the Respect Life Office for the Archdiocese of Cincinnati, and this is our video podcast series that we call Being Pro-Life. Each month, we'll discuss a different topic in the Respect Life arena. We'll hear a personal story from someone deeply affected by that issue and share how you can get involved. This month's topic is human trafficking. As always, we have a special guest today. Will you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Tanya Folks. I am the Human Trafficking Liaison at the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office.
So first, why don't you tell us a little bit about what is human trafficking?
It's basically anybody who's exploited through labor or through the sex industry, and there is an element of force, fraud, or coercion. Force is exactly what it sounds like, do this or else. Fraud is being scammed, being tricked. Coercion is the threat of force, but our courts are kind of interpreting it as emotional and psychological manipulation as well. So it's any element of force, fraud, or coercion, exploiting someone's labor, not paying them according to our labor laws. That's labor trafficking. And sex trafficking is exploiting someone in the sex industry, and also if they're under 18. So a 17-year-old girl can't consent to be a stripper or a prostitute. She's a victim of sex trafficking.
So I imagine a lot of people believe that for the most part, human trafficking is an international problem, not a United States problem. Certainly people in Ohio probably think it's not much of an Ohio problem, but your position alone suggests that it's a big problem here in Ohio. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about why it is that we in Ohio need to be so concerned about it.
Okay, well, let me give you a little history. In the state of Ohio around 2010, the governor at the time, Governor Kasich, threw some money at research and wanted to know if labor or sex trafficking was an issue in Ohio. Primarily what we discovered was, wow, it really is an issue in Ohio. And not only is it an issue, these victims are often incarcerated and they're certainly judged by the culture. And the research showed us they didn't come from the backgrounds we thought that they would come from. They weren't recruited the way we thought they would be recruited. And that's when we had to face the fact that we had preconceived ideas about what it is. What is prostitution? What is sex trafficking?
So what are those preconceived ideas and what is the reality?
So we have always believed in this country that if you're a prostitute, you chose it.
Right.
Wow, does the research show something completely different? Of course, there are outliers. If you ask most Americans, where do prostitutes work? What do they say?
In the inner city.
Right, on the street, right? Guess what? That's wrong. About 15 years ago, the bulk of it went online. So what I can tell you now is typically the ladies you see on the street are drug addicts. They've been in the life a while. And what happens is there's a socioeconomic status to this industry. So high level is high-end brothels and high-end escorts. Middle class are strippers, porn, prostitutes that are sold online. And then the lowest place you can go is the street. So what the research shows is that today, in 2018, the bulk of victims are recruited up in the high and middle class. Then as they age or develop a drug habit, because it's not a great life, so then they're sold down because sex traffickers, unlike drug traffickers, are very socially linked. They're buddies, they're business partners. So if a high-end brothel owner from Cincinnati has a girl, he allowed his girls to smoke pot and drink alcohol, but nothing else because it affects the package. When they moved on to something else or they aged, he would call his buddy at the middle class and say, hey, got Rachel here. This is how much she made last year. This is what she'll make this year. She's got a little bit of a meth problem. Do you want to buy her? And then he'll pass or he'll take her. So then Rachel will go down the socioeconomic chain until by the time you and I see her on the street, we're like, girl, this is America, the land of opportunity. There's no excuse for you being a prostitute. And we assume that she chose it. But the research indicates that most prostitutes prior to 2012 in our country are child victims of sexual exploitation who were just never rescued. They have that trauma. It affects their brain. We know from brain scans that trauma looks like brain damage on the scan. So they can't do the right thing. They can't just walk away. The average prostitute will exit and re-enter the life 7 times before breaking free. And that's if she's not drug addicted.
So typically they start prior to the age of 18, perhaps prior to graduating from high school.
Absolutely.
How does a young person still in high school, perhaps living with their parents, end up being trafficked?
The number one recruiter is the best friend. Same age. The number one red flag in the Miami Valley is you have a kid and they have a cell phone that you pay for as a parent or an aunt or an uncle, whatever, and then you find a second cell phone. That is called their date phone. They just don't know it yet. So typically how that works locally, I can give you an example. A girl will come into a school and say middle school. She's looking for a girl who's having sex with her boyfriend or is having problems at home or is just a rebel, someone who wants to just give it to society, is just angry or whatever. I call these indicators. It puts them at extreme high risk. Have they been previously sexually abused? If so, guarantee you they have so much shame, they could be manipulated super easy. They prefer those kids. But they'll be told by the trafficker what to look for. And then they befriend them. They come under false pretenses, that's fraud, and they create a relationship. And then they say something like, you know, I know you have a cell phone, but I needed to talk to you last night at 3 a.m. I broke up with my boyfriend, insert teenage drama here.
Right.
And I couldn't talk to you because I know your mom would see on the bill that I called you. Or your mom's smart and doesn't let you have your cell phone in your room. So here is a brand new iPhone X I bought you, girl, because I'm your best friend. And I'm going to pay for your data because you're my sister and we need to be able to communicate at all times. But don't let your mom see it.
Wow.
So if you find a second cell phone, we absolutely need to know about it. Most Americans, when they think pimp, they think blackmail, flashy clothes, Cadillac.
Right.
But the Polaris Project put out data, and they projected that 95% of traffickers in the United States are white, middle-class business owners. So these guys live in the suburbs with their families, and they're recruiting in the suburbs, and this is why. Basically, men today who buy sex online, we know quite a bit about them. They are paying for something called the girlfriend experience. They don't want to go to the inner city and have bed bug sex with a drug-addicted female. They want the girl to be non-drug addicted and young and very attractive. And there are websites devoted to recruiting these young ladies through exposing them to the sex industry in innocent ways where they can make money, and then they get sucked in. Most strip clubs operate on a business model. Now, of course, there are exceptions, and maybe somebody's listening owns one, and this is the exception. But this is what he testified before Congress. He said, if you walk in and you see a waitress, they likely use sex trafficking. And then he broke it down. He said, this is how it works. A woman who wants to be a waitress in a strip club has hardship in her life. I know that when she walks in the door. Maybe she's a single parent. Maybe who knows, but she's got hardship in her life. She comes to the strip club and gets a job, and someone in the organization will befriend her. Could be a dancer, could be a bouncer, could be the owner, whoever she clicks with, they'll befriend her. And then, 1 week she's going to need some help with a flat tire. She's going to need money to get her through till payday. She's going to need something because she has hardship in her life, and they're going to supply it. Now, the reason this is sex trafficking is because that's fraud. When she walks in the door, they know the ultimate goal is to get her up on stage.
Right.
She doesn't know that. That's fraud. So what ends up happening is maybe one night, there's different ways they could do it, but here's an example. One night, it's amateur night. And there's an hour where no one is scheduled. And her new friend will come to her and plead on their relationship. Girl, I've helped you so much. You know we're good friends, and I would never ask you. We've got a 30-minute, we need someone on stage. You're so beautiful. You can get twice as many tips. And there's just something about it that after they do it the first time, that's it. They're in. Which is why a lot of strip clubs have a certain window of time for waitresses to become strippers. And if they don't,
and they're out.
Yeah. Usually, they're out. Have you ever heard the story about the frog? You put it in boiling hot water, it jumps out. You put it in cold water and you turn the heat up and it boils to death.
Right.
Okay.
Sure.
That's exactly what's happening to the youth and to the women in our culture on this issue. They start to rationalize, I'll just get on stage this one time. And then they do it and they realize, oh, it's not so bad. And they like the attention or whatever. And they just continue doing it. So when you have a national strip club owner testifying before Congress on this issue, why doesn't the American public care? Because we've always said they choose it. But we don't see the manipulation and the story behind how they got there. And the research shows both nationally and in the state of Ohio, the number one predisposition to being recruited isn't family background, isn't demographic information. It is where they messed with sexually as a kid. So one of the first trafficking victims that I worked with came from a very upper middle class faith-based family from right here, close to you. And her parents did their due diligence. They said, this is your private area, nobody touches it. And she knew that. Okay, she knew she wouldn't be in trouble, but it wasn't a good thing. Well, when she was 5, her uncle, who she loved, started molesting her. The problem is he knew mom had had these conversations, so he made sure that he showered her with the attention that she craved, but that it felt good. Because here's the reality. Regardless of moral implications at 5, our bodies are designed to feel pleasure with certain stimuli. So when she tells this story, she says, he was my uncle. I loved him. He was giving me attention and he made my body really feel good. So she felt like she had consented, even at 5. She knew she was doing something mom wouldn't like, but she was doing it with an adult she trusted and loved. And well, it didn't take long for him to move on to rape. Well, she didn't like the rape, obviously, but at that point, she did not feel that she could tell her mom or her parents or anyone else because she had already consented.
Right, it had gone on so long too.
He had groomed her, yes. So when she was 13, he moved out of state, and she's very intelligent. She said, I knew I needed help, but I also understood mandated reporting. Like if I told my school counselor, if I told someone who could actually help me, they're required by law to report that to law enforcement. And she says, there's no way I would do that because not only was I having sex with my uncle, because he had convinced her it was consensual, I would be responsible for tearing apart my family and I'd rather be dead. So she did the only thing left to her. She went to a place she felt safest, her faith community, her church, and she met a man there. He listened to her. She poured her heart and soul out. She sobbed. She cried. He listened to everything. And then he pimped her out for 10 years. Wow. And she used to argue with me and say, he only beat me 2 times in 10 years. So he's not a pimp. See, even the victims own what our culture says about prostitution. Once they are sold for sex the first time, they completely own everything we say about them, even when it's not true.
Wow.
So he told her basically this. Now, remember, he knows she grew up in a faith-based family. She has severe sexual trauma. He told her, look, Jesus had a prostitute in his bloodline, and you think you're too good to be one. That is why you're miserable. God allowed you to enjoy sex at 5 because you've been called to this profession and you're fighting it, and that's why you're miserable. She says it was easier to live in that lie than to face the truth.
How did he find her?
So here's all human trafficking, both labor and sex, can be boiled down to 2 simple words: vulnerability and control. That's it. 3 steps to recruitment: establish a relationship and build trust. Identify a vulnerability. If you have a relationship with anybody in your life and you've told them a secret, you're 2 steps in already. And then the final step is just exploiting that. In this case, she went to the one place that her parents told her she could go for help if she ever had an issue she couldn't come and talk with them about. Traffickers know that. They know all the safe places, libraries, the mall.
One of the things I'm learning here is when you think of sex trafficking in particular, I think of somebody being kidnapped and held in a box somewhere.
That's an outlier, but it's rare.
We're talking about people who are still living on their college campus or maybe even at home.
Yes. So we know there was a woman, her name is Teresa Flores. You can read about her online. She was trafficked right out of her parents' house by her boyfriend. He pretended a relationship, and then they drugged her, raped her, and took pictures. And then they said, if you don't do what we say, we're going to put these pictures everywhere.
Right.
So she did exactly what they said for 2 years. That is not uncommon. Here's what I can tell you about every street prostitute I've ever met. They were prior trafficking victims. That's how they got into it. And even before that, they were a victim of some kind of sexual abuse.
So now that we realize how big of a problem this is, what do we do about it?
I believe there's a 3-prong approach to this. There's the before, the during, and the after. So the before is education and awareness. What is trafficking? What does it look like in your community? Who's the local expert that can come talk to you about it, what to look for, and more importantly, what to do when you suspect it? In Southwest Ohio, that's me. I'll come in, I'll tell you exactly what's going on in your community, what to look for, what it looks like, and what the organizational structure is. Who's going to be around this person? I break all that down with pictures, and I say, this is a groomer. This is a watcher. This is a recruiter.
Are you saying that you're available to talk to schools or something like that?
Yes, I go all over. It's free. I come to you. It's just as easy as emailing me and getting it scheduled.
So how do we reach you for that?
A simple email, folks, FOLKS, T for Tanya, at MC, that's for Montgomery County, ohiosheriff.org. And it's an engaging presentation. I bring pictures. We talk about local cases.
So step one, be educated on the topic. And one of
So
those
that's the
ways,
before.
right.
The during is, in our state, there's really not a lot of resources to look for runaways. And we know runaways nationally in America are especially vulnerable to labor and sex trafficking recruitment. So I created a program called the Corey Project, the Community Outreach for Runaway Youth. It's from upwards of Springfield it's into Northern Kentucky now. And basically every 3 months, hundreds and hundreds of volunteers take flyers that they print out. We put 8 local missing kids on that flyer, and then we put them everywhere the public goes, Kroger, hotels, anywhere that people would normally go in the course of their day. They print those out and they take them and they put them up. They are finding these runaway kids, and it's just growing and growing and growing. That is something anyone can be involved with. And they can email me at the email I gave you, and then I can connect them with the volunteer who runs that program for me. So, and then the aftercare.
Okay.
In the Miami Valley, we have Safe Harbor House in Springfield. They serve women from all over the country. They are a faith-based organization. They are fully professionally trauma-informed care, social workers, psychiatrists. It's a 24/7 trauma therapy. And also they work with people who suffer from addiction. And they're the gold standard for the state, according to the Attorney General's office. Then second, we have a place called Oasis House. It's in Dayton. So any woman who's in the sex industry, maybe she's got kids, she's got life situations where she can't, Safe Harbor is a minimum 1-year residential treatment program.
Okay.
So Oasis has also got a curriculum and a program, but they're a little more lenient about if she just needs 6 months to get on her feet, to save up, work, get her license, get her GED, they will help her do that. If you want to do street outreach in Dayton, you can contact Oasis House. Now, can I just say one thing that I'm very frustrated about?
Sure.
Right now, Americans often get accused of not being compassionate because all we do is throw money at the problem. But this is one issue where we need to do that and no one's doing it. I don't know how Safe Harbor stays open. They need $500,000 and they squeeze a penny until it screams. I personally don't donate to anybody until I read their 990. You can see every penny they spend. When you have actual certified professionals working sometimes for free when they can't make budget, that is astounding to me. We need people in the faith community to come up behind them and support them.
If you go to safeharborhouse.org,
Right.
and then at the top, there's this link called Join and Give. I click on Donate.
If you click on Donate Now,
You can donate money. You can donate a vehicle. You can donate assets, a gift card, even have an other category.
well, I can tell you that they're always looking for drivers, which is strange to me, but these ladies often have multiple medical issues, and they just need a female driver to take them to appointments, even if it's just one day a month.
So if you have some free time just every now and then, call up Safe Harbor and volunteer your time, and they'll work with you on being able to help out in that way as well. Tanya, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for covering this issue. Woo! I'm so happy.
I hope that our listeners can get involved, volunteer, or donate, or somehow make the rest of the people they work with more aware of how it is that we can reduce the trafficking problems that we have in our community and help those who have already been victimized by it. Have a great day, and I do hope that people get in contact with you about some of the ways that you can help them get involved as well.
Me too.
And they can reach you at folks, as in the word folks, FOLKST, at mcohiosheriff.org.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.
right, bye-bye.
Bye.